How's it going, guys? We're here for our fourth why and how video series, talking about different variations that powerlifters can use to increase their technique or performance in their competition lifts. So today's movement is the RDL, so the Romanian Deadlift. Why would you use a Romanian deadlift as a variation to your deadlift or even your squat? Because as I'll talk about later, it's hamstring related. So that's number one. The RDL allows you to focus in on building strength in your hamstrings. Your hamstrings play a role in extending your hips. So in both movements, the deadlift and the squat, the final goal of the lift is to be able to fully lock out, fully extend at the hips. So that's where the RDL can come into play. If you're somebody who has trouble or is weak in the hamstrings, then an RDL will be a great option for you. Another great option would be like a beginning lifter who hasn't done too much with deadlifting yet. The RDL can teach them how to properly hinge at the hips, brace at the core, keep the shoulders retracted and pulled back before jumping into the actual deadlift itself. The other great thing about the RDL is that it allows you to strengthen the hamstrings in a lengthened state, allowing for greater load tolerance. So you'll be able to tolerate greater loads in your deadlift, in your squat, when the hamstrings need to fire to help you extend the hips. If they can't tolerate the load, they're not going to work properly or do their part in the movement. So implementing the RDL is a great way to increase strength specifically to the hamstrings. So let's talk about how to execute the movement. That is going to be key, right? You can go ahead and do it, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it right, and you got to make sure that everything's firing properly so you can do it right. Are you stretching the hamstrings to their full extent so they are fully loaded? Are you, when you're coming up out of the RDL, are you firing your glutes and your hamstrings to extend at the hips? So here's a few things that you want to think about as we go in and talk about the technique for the RDL.
Alright, so let's get started. With the RDL, your grip is going to be right outside the hips. So here you see I'm pulling the bar from the ground. Sometimes you might be starting actually out of a rack. If you're pulling from the ground, you want to grip the bar right outside the hips, retract the shoulders, brace at the core, keep the chest tall, and then as you bring the bar up through the legs, you want to extend at the hips, engage the glutes, and fully lock out at the top. Then from there, that's when you're going to get started on your first rep. So you're going to lower the bar slowly down the legs. The bar shouldn't leave the legs. It needs to stay tight and close to you. And while you're lowering it down, you're hinging at the hips, you're keeping your chest tall, your shoulders retracted, and your core braced. So see, I'm going to keep it nice and tight all the way up and through. No rainbows, no rounding, hinging back in the hips, fully extending, making sure that my hamstrings get fully loaded. And here I'm going to show you that not everybody can get all the way to the ground. You want to go until you feel that stretch, until that stretch can be tolerated. Quickly, just a few tips or cues that you can think about when you're doing the RDL. And then the main thing is just a few pointers. You want to make sure, again, no rainbows. Your brace as tight as you can. Your shoulders are pulled back nice and tight. And you're hinging at the hips properly, keeping that back nice and flat. The second one is going to be the ability to have a slight bend in your knees. Not like your normal deadlift where you're fully bent, but here you just have a slight bend to increase that range of motion and allow for more loading. The third one is going to be about keeping the bar close. So a lot of new lifters have a tendency to let the bar sway away from them. Think about pulling it back into you, firing the glutes through to a full lockout position. So there you have your RDL with Raising the Bar Performance. Post any questions below or check out more program info at raisingthebarperformance.com.